in the city, you can only purchase it at that station when you enter the city station. So it doesn't matter where you live, it just matters if you're traveling in the by road.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, I mean, but people can drive in from Nassau County and buy a city ticket.
A freedom ticket can be available only on city machines.
And they do.
And then it's a parking management.
They do, well,
No,
weekends,
you walk from the Far Rockaway station.
Well, there may be some loss.
No, there are people that do it.
But I think in the context of, if you do that.
But I mean, it's frankly not a ton of money. Even if
Yeah,
But it's made up.
yeah, here.
yeah,
It's
and
established
you
once
get, and you
enough,
also
once you get more than-
pick up revenue. I mean, you have a relatively modest loss from existing riders flipping over a city ticket, but you also pick up because remember
Filling empty seats.
Freedom ticket. Remember, Freedom ticket's more expensive than local bus and subway. So there are people for whom it's worth it. So basically every 1,000 people you switch over, you basically you're picking up $3 per ride per trip for people switching over from local bus and subway to Freedom ticket. If you're picking up regular riders, it's basically $1,500 a year per rider. If you have 1,000 riders flip or regular commuters, you're looking at about $1.5 million revenue enhancement. So you balance that out against the 4.3. And we don't know if it's going to be 1,000. We don't know if it's going to be 2,000. We know we've got a lot of capacity. If we fill half the seats, even if we fill half the seats, that's approximately 10,000 seats. So we've got a lot of room to pick up new riders.
It's a money maker.
It could be a revenue neutral or even a net plus in some places. We know in some places in the city it's definitely going to be a minus. So we have to.
Bill, did you just say that it would be $3 per ride additional revenue?
Yes.
Does that mean that it will not be the same cost, or how much it will cost that much more?
It won't cost the same as a local bus.
How much more than, because then I was given wrong information and was giving out wrong, well, I'll talk about that later. But that's one of the things that was brought up at that meeting that I told you and Andrew about, that it should cost the same or maybe a little bit more. But if you're talking about $3 more per ride to somebody who uses this, and you're talking about people, then it's not gonna fly, because that is why elected officials are not going to, and I'll talk about.
They're signing on.
They're aware of.
Some are, that they.
They're aware of what our proposal is and what the cost would be.
Andrew, maybe I ought to talk about at least on it right now then.
But
No, not right
the
now.
financial part,
Okay,
because I think that's.
but
No, I mean, people are aware of that. Yeah. Some people are going to say it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me. I won't switch from local bus.
Some will say that.
I'll continue to take the dollar van to Jamaica, and I'll take the subway in.
A lot of what we're doing with this is we're trying to gear more towards the monthlies and the weeklies, because that's where you get the most
That's where it
savings.
makes
That's where
So this is geared
makes
more
most sense.
towards
Yeah.
people who are commuting and purchasing the monthly ticket. That's where you get the real savings.
Yeah.
And it's convenience to be able to use
well,
like
how
the
much
one
more
trip.
on a monthly ticket or a weekly ticket
Well, we
will it
went
cost to
through
Yeah,
ride?
that
but-
a second ago.
So it's basically when you're combining New York City Transit with the
Can you go
railroad,
back to that slide
Yeah.
of the comparison?
you're,
Oh, I think
no,
you
no,
asked it.
Oh, I
You asked
did?
it, yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
There you go.
There we go. So basically it's $334.50 when you combine the transit and the railroad.
Right now.
And then if you have the freedom ticket, it would drop it down to $215 for a 36% discount. And
But it would still cost them a lot more
It would.
than if they just used.
It would, but for a lot of these people, time is money because they pay by the
Exactly.
hour for childcare. They pay, they have,
Plus, we're asking.
It is.
Okay, I'll bring this up later.
We're asking
okay.
the
Actually,
city-
Andrew, I'll bring it up
We're
later.
asking the city to contribute to this. That's how it's
Yeah.
able to be done, and the city understands that.
It's the city, but
And
it
they
is
could
not
contribute more.
it is not your electeds who don't, they really don't.
They don't understand.
do.
this.
Yannick didn't.
Well, we've sat there and
I
gone.
did a
I
television
know,
show.
I know you
Yeah,
do,
I mean,
and
there are a
you
number
know
of-
what we, okay, let me bring it up when it's time
Contracts.
for me to bring this up. That's what I came here for, to
Okay.
talk about this.
Okay, so, we talked about having to do this with a financial partner. And that's really integral to the system. There's no justification for lowering fares on one side of the Nassau border, Nassau-Queens border, and not on the other, except that the city is financially participating in this. So it's really integral that the city be in this, and that's frankly one of the reasons we can't do it at the 275 single swipe MetroCard cost. The cost would be too much, and the city would balk.
And it would flood the system and make it.
And we'd have something on the demand side too. We'd have a problem on the demand side too.
So it would trigger
So-
new trains
There would be a
required
lot
on
of
the Long
issues,
Island.
there would be a lot of issues with it, but by establishing city ticket on the basis of if your local government is a financial partner, then you can have these discounts. Then we have a basis for pricing differentially between one area and another. And there's nothing wrong. There would be nothing wrong with Nassau or certain districts of Nassau also participating in it and reducing their costs for close-in riders as well. I mean, that's certainly something that they'd have to look at as how they want as part of how they want to spend their money, but it's not not outside the scope of the program. Okay, so we talked about the three steps, the proof of concept early on in this year's fare hearings and tariff changes. The phase 2 where we hit most of the transit underserved areas, the areas where they're 20.8 miles from an existing station. And then as East Side Access comes online and we pick up more capacity, both in terms of capacity from the LIRR into Manhattan, and also new markets for Metro North. That would be phase 3, and that's where we would expect to basically be system-wide as far as Freedom Ticket available anywhere in the city to any other point in the city.
That passes on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, we've been busy talking to various elected officials in the city and state government and borough presidents, and we were really thrilled to get this wonderful endorsement letter from the Brooklyn Borough President to the chairman that says we write to applaud the New York City Transit Rider Council's Freedom Ticket proposal for transit and urge the MTA and the Long Island Railroad to support a Freedom Ticket pilot proposal along the Atlantic branch of the Long Island Railroad. And he mentions that in Brooklyn, Freedom Ticket represents an opportunity to support neighborhood growth and development in East New York, especially as the city is attempting to implement its East New York plan rezoning process. It takes only 10 minutes on the Long Island Railroad to travel from the East New York to Atlantic terminal stations, while a peak hour ticket is $8.25, a large sum for those living in some of the poorest areas in New York State. However, it takes more than twice as long to travel via subway from Broadway Junction to Atlantic Terminal. MTA data shows nearly 3,500 seats were available during peak rush hour from Jamaica to Atlantic Terminal.
Between 9 and 10.
Yeah. Additionally, Long Island Railroad Nostrand Station is a 5-minute ride from the East New York and only 2 blocks from the AC line in Bed-Stuy, which would give riders direct access to Wall Street and Lower Manhattan, allowing a transfer between the LIRR and MTA. I think he meant transit. At this junction would not only decrease travel time, but also broaden travel options. And he goes on to say, we believe Freedom Ticket could be a significant asset in mitigating strain on the existing subway system while also providing residents in East New York an affordable option to ride the LIRR to Atlantic Terminal. And we're really thrilled that he signed this. Council member Robert Cornegie has signed this. Lori Cumbo, council member. Rafael Espinal, council member. Martin Malave Delan, state senator. Walter Mosley, Assembly member. Annette Robinson, Assembly member. Latrice Walker, Assembly member. And we have the public advocate and others.
Move New York.
Move New York is introducing a support for Freedom Ticket in their bill pending in Albany. They're going to be sending us the wording of that. As Trudy mentioned, and this is the perfect lead-in for Trudy, I and Danique Miller, council member for this area of Southeast Queens, did a show on New York One, and Danique's initial proposal was for a Metro card fare on the railroad, and that raised so many red flags to the MTA. But then we showed him this proposal, and he said, well, I would certainly support this if I can't have my Metro card proposal. And I think it's gaining traction. And Trudy, as I said in my chair's report, met with the Queens Interagency Council for the Aging. Is that what
On
it's
aging.
called? On aging.
Whatever.
And they
The old
seemed,
folks in Queens County.
yeah, and they seemed excited about this too.
No, they were excited about what Danique proposed, and I wrote down his exact words, which is that he wanted this, that he has put in a council resolution for the Freedom Ticket, as long as the pricing is consistent with the price of MetroCard. Those were,
He's spoken to us about that.
yeah, but this is 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and he said.
Have you spoken to him? Excuse me, can I finish?
This is in line with
May I
what you're
finish?
saying.
May I
Yes.
finish, please?
But
This
it is in line
meeting-
with what you're saying.
This meeting was held January 13th, which is
Yes.
just 2 weeks
I'm
ago.
not denying that that's, he
And
told us that was the stand he was going to take.
Ellen,
That he thinks that it being anchored in the Metro.
but can I finish about what the reaction was and what the other discussion was?
I-
I'm defensive, I'm just trying to give you information, which I gave Andrew on the phone because I didn't know that I could be here, he asked me to be here, so I'm here, okay? He spoke about many different things to make both financial and making it easier for people with disabilities as well as seniors in using mass transit. And this was his main thing. So after I spoke to him about this, and by the way, before I get to Danique, there is something wonderful that we have that I didn't know existed. And I've asked Bill and Andrew if we can distribute this to everybody, because when I knew I was being asked to speak at the meeting, I said, is there a map that marks accessible subway station? And there isn't, or there isn't one that we put out. This little card is the most wonderful thing. They grabbed them. I brought 200 and they were taken and then they asked me for more. So I would suggest that if we haven't publicized this.
I brought them today.
No, but Edith has brought this up, but what I'm saying is
I
that
disseminated them.
we should distribute, all of us should let it be known, and we should let it be known that such a thing exists. Because Edith, you might have brought it here and disseminating it in the disability community, but I'm telling you, not one person, and there were over 200 people, seniors at this, not one of them knew that this existed.
So were you speaking on a panel on behalf of the Transit Riders?
No, I was not speaking on behalf, I was listed as an advocate. And I had told Bill that I was going, and I thought one of the issues would be about transportation, but it was other senior issues also, okay? And my friend Joan Serrano Laufer, who lives in Washington Heights, but heads this up, had asked me to speak, okay? So I did not, but Bill knew I.
No,
No,
there's
that's fine.
no question.
And
that you will go.
nobody said that I could not.
No, it's
go.
only
No.
if they were made to, if they came away believing that our proposal for Freedom Ticket was to be at the price of the Metro card.
You know, you
That-
haven't
that's all.
let me finish, and that's exactly why I spoke up when Danique made his presentation first, before I did. And so when it came time for me, I said that the New York City Transit Riders Council has come up with a proposal similar to Danique's. And I said, and I'm sure that the councilman knows about this. And he said, yes, I do, but my resolution is different. And we didn't
No,
get into a
we knew
whole
he was gonna do that.
back, we didn't get into a whole back and forth. But he also said that he has support of a lot of people in the council including Giannis,
Adonis Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, and, okay, so, and then he talked about that if this couldn't happen, he also talked about making commuter vans safer, more accessible, and affordable. His big thing is whatever you do, it has got to be affordable. And it's got to be affordable to people who live on fixed incomes, who would be the people who would use this. And he went, okay. I spoke about this, I spoke about many other things, including this wonderful card and a lot of other things that are going on here, plus some other programs for seniors that are not directly transit relatable. So after the meeting was, or after he spoke and I spoke, we both went off to the side while there were some other people from. The other thing that he said is that he was working with the Riders Alliance. And so I pointed out that it was not the Riders Alliance, but it was the New York City Transit Riders Council that had brought this up. And he said, well, isn't that the same thing? I said, no. And that, I have said this over and over and over again, that we have got to make it clear who we are, what we do, and that we are not the Strap Hangers campaign or the Riders
Right,
Alliance.
but we met with them, I mean,
I-
to a degree that
Ellen,
they should know.
if you could
They
please
should
let me
certainly
finish
know.
and
They should
something
know.
on.
Hey,
I am just telling
Right,
you
right.
what went on. Okay, I took a lot of notes, which I usually don't do, but I took a lot of notes. And it says, my notes say, taking credit for Freedom Ticket with the Riders Alliance. And I underlined that 5 times. So all I'm saying that there has to be some way that we can make it clearer and clearer. He then told me, he said, well, I was on New York One. I said, I know you were, and you were with Andrew. I said, you were with Andrew Albert, who is the chair of the New York City Transit Riders Council. He said, oh, I didn't know that was his title. That's why I came here today. Denique Miller,
He's a council
He's a
member.
lovely
He's a
person,
and he's
but
a
he's
lovely
a
person.
council member, and you should just take it.
He
ATU.
represents St. Albans, and he actually represents Southeast Queens, which is basically what you're talking about. So all I am suggesting, and he started telling me, and then the Queensborough President's Office also said that, you know, they are supportive of the idea, but it has got to be right, and I played stupid.
Well,
I
that's
didn't
good,
say-
because they won't even meet with us.
Well, I can set that up, with one phone call, okay? I would be happy to do that for you, okay? Because this meeting was held in Queensborough Hall, and there were, as I told Andrew, there were a number of representatives, because this is sort of on a dotted line related to
This
the,
is a
Okay.
very good thing for
and
people.
I have a lot of time, okay? Whatever it is, I am telling you that you have got to have more meetings with elected representatives, because then I ran into Giannis and something else. Adonis. Adonis. I always call him Giannis, and he doesn't even correct me anymore.
No.
Anyway.
He doesn't notice it.
I ran, people call me, they make the name, okay. But, and because his constituent is the person who brought me to this, even though she's up in Washington Heights. And he says, oh yes, he said, but I think, he said, unless whatever is done about the pricing, it's a great idea, but if you can't ask people to pay more. And I said, well, it may cost a little. I said, again, I played stupid when I talked to him
It's a
about it.
premium service.
The same way that I did with Dunnage, and I said, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be so much more convenient, blah, 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 blah. And he said, no, we've got to, you know, there's got to be more conversation about how much it costs. So all I'm telling you, and I'm just wondering, are you sure that Eric Adams and all the Brooklyn legislators that remain are aware that it's going to cost like $3 more per
We gave them
ride?
the whole, we gave
Yeah.
No, but in your present, I have a feeling.
In our presentation,
I
it's
have a
very
feeling
very
that
clear
a lot of these elected representatives who were going crazy when the fare went up 25 cents, you're nodding, that when the fare went up 25 cents or 50 cents, whatever it was, and the cost of a monthly and a weekly, that they were screaming bloody murder then. And if you're gonna tell them that it's gonna go up $3 more, they're gonna come back, and I guarantee you, knowing some of the people who signed
No,
that
because
letter.
we're not saying they can't keep going the way they're
Right,
going
they-
and use
you're
the
not
fare
just
that they
an
wanna
option.
use, it's an option.
But-
And it reduces crowding so that everybody wins.
Okay, all I'm saying is that in the current, in the current, where we are right now, the first consideration, especially in government, is money. Money, 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 and how much it's gonna cost their constituents. I've seen this over and over and over
And
again.
it's not costing them anything if they choose
they don't
to not
keep
take
doing
it.
They don't
If
say,
they
"Go ahead."
keep doing their old trip,
Yes,
that's their choice.
That's
Exactly.
absolutely
You can
right.
either, yeah, and the thing
but
is.
it's a premium service,
The way-
just like express
The way
buses
we're
and
selling it
trains.
is for something like 1.5 times the current fare, you have a host of options. You can get to any rail station, you know, within the boroughs.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I'm not fighting this. You're all acting like
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
reporting.
but this is the way we've told them.
I
We told
am
them it is not
reporting.
a Metro
The
card
state of
fare.
affairs that
For
you heard.
whatever reason, as of 2 weeks ago, he talked about his legislation, and he made it that it has to be consistent with the price of a Metro card. I even said, well, suppose it's a little more, but they get all these wonderful other, I didn't know there was.
Trudy, we understand that's his position. We know that. He told me
Yeah,
to my
he
face,
said it
that's
several
what I
times.
have to say.
Right, exactly.
They're gonna
And that's
get it.
exactly it.
Yes.
I have to say this for my constituents.
Yes.
He said this
But-
to me directly
Yeah.
last Tuesday.
And his legislative aide did too, but
Right.
he also said, but if we can't get this, we're
What are
backing
the
your
options?
free
But you know, what it
proposal.
comes down, what it comes down to is you can either have a ride on a unicorn or have a ride on a horse. Unicorn won't exist. The 275 fare for the
George.
railroad won't exist, the horse will.
George?
Of your choice.
Could I just say a word here, because as a former chair, predecessor to Andrew, he took so seriously the job, he's still here. I mean, after 25 years or whatever it is, so, and I'm glad, because he's done a wonderful job. I think it's important to deal with the politics of an issue and the analysis of it. And those two things should be kept separate. I think the analysis that was done here revealed some very interesting things. There's a lot of empty seats on the trains coming into Brooklyn that could be well filled with people that would gain something by being able to use them. That's an important fact that a lot of people didn't know, and I think putting that out on the table is fine. The question of, there's something called price elasticity, if you want to use that term, but just at what price would people fill up those seats? That wasn't done in this analysis. It'd be nice if it could be done. There are models that the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, which is right around the corner now, and MTA itself have to do these things. MTA has never looked at any of this stuff in a really, extreme way. Extreme means the way the council members would like it to, not your council, the city council. Seems to me that these issues should be studied in a craftsman-like way. What would we lose if we did this? What would we do that? How many person hours would be saved? How crowded would the trains be, et cetera, et cetera. There are at least a dozen issues that could be dealt with analytically. I think city council, what we heard just at the beginning of this meeting, or early in this meeting, is that there's an enormous cash give back to commuters on their income tax. It almost all goes to the suburbs. Doesn't go to suburban. I mean, a handful of city people do, but so there's a big balance here of who gets what, and it's more than just this railroad ticket. It's a whole bunch of things. I think that when I met with Edonis 2 years ago, I don't know whether I was the one that originated this, but I told him this is what you should do: is call for the city ticket to be at a Metro card price, and apparently he persuaded his fellow council member, and that was because I thought it was a good idea, because the Queens Boulevard subway is way overcrowded. It's not going to be relieved anytime soon. Maybe you're waiting for the Queens Express to come. I don't think that's going to happen.
Waiting for CBTC to come.
And whatever. But basically, these are things that would happen. The same thing would happen on the Lexington line in the Bronx if you had Metro North tickets both for the existing railroad, but also for the new Hellgate service. If they were priced at city transit fares, people would use whatever's in their best interest, not whatever MTA thinks is in their best interest. It seems to me that maybe we should do that or should not, but we should look at it. And we should look at it in a disinterested third-party way, a clinical way, and say, this is what would happen if you did this, this is what would happen if you did B, C, and D. And I think the discussion up till now has been very good in terms of starting that, but the issue ought to be one of, let's take a solid look at this stuff. We've got a resource that's available, empty seats coming into Brooklyn, and we have people that are paying
And some to Penn Station too.
through the nose in time, in travel time, because of the oddities of this fare structure.
George,
Yes.
we had a lady come to the MTA board one meeting and said, I commute from my home in Rosedale to my job in the financial
Excuse me, where
district,
is Rosedale?
Southeast Queens.
That's south.
Right out-
It's
right-
near
it's
St.
like
Albans.
Laurelton and
It's
then
near
Rosedale.
Right.
Okay, St.
Right next
Albans.
to Valley
Yeah, it's
Street.
right near St. Albans, on the
Okay.
border.
The city side of the Valley Stream,
Yeah,
Rosedale border.
okay, thank you.
And she said, I take
Right.
a bus and 2 subways to get to my job in the financial district. Sometimes it takes me an hour and 45 minutes, sometimes it takes me 2 hours. For somewhat more, but nowhere near as much as the railroad and subway combined, through Freedom Ticket, she could be at her job in 38 minutes. Would people who get that kind of time and control of their life back be willing to pay a little more? We think they would.
But
I-
$3 a ticket isn't a little more.
But here's the other part
On
that
a
they
monthly,
haven't been talked
it's-
about here.
Yeah.
We have presented it to others as this is a starting point. We have it as a pilot so that you start to see how many people are switching over. So is it, George, as you say, looking at the models, there is an expectation that there are things the MTA and NYCTRC can do that's beyond our capacity, which is running those miles, to see what is the best price point where you get those 3,000 new riders and then some more because there's 20,000 empty seats to make it so it's an income source for the MTA, but at the same time, a low enough pricing for the city riders. And if it's a level, we just put out something that's a 2-tiered system that seems doable. a
How did you
premium
come up
fare
with that
and
$3 additional per ride?
to have it close to the, we wanted 2 tiers, and so using the model of the express bus ticket is what
It's cheaper than
We
express.
We also had discussions with them, with MTA with MTA, and, you know, they gave us, they gave us some of their feelings on some of the prior proposals that had been released, and you know, and
Which
what.
were?
Well, there was a proposal for a 5, I mean, there've been several proposals in conjunction with the Move New York,
They've changed their price.
and they've changed their pricing over time, and they gave us their opinion of whether the pricing was workable or not. And
It's
that
getting it
went
off the
into, that
ground,
went
is
into the
it?
mix.
We're asking the city to subsidize Freedom Ticket. If it was, and they understand that, and if it was hypothetically the MetroCard price on all of these rail facilities, that figure would triple maybe.
It's a huge number then.
It's a
And so
huge
getting it off
number.
the ground to get it started is a problem. You could lower it, there's no harm in lowering a price, but the problem is having the 2 systems get bombarded by passengers because it's all of a sudden one day your MetroCard is getting you on the railroad will wreak havoc on
And
the
maybe
system.
when Eastside Access opens up, maybe that'll change everything,
Yeah.
we just don't know yet.
But that's what
When
we
is
wanted.
Eastside Access opening up, Mike?
2022, the earliest.
But I think George's idea of doing some of the economic modeling is a very
Yes.
useful endeavor to.
The other thing, George, on the modeling is, this proposal does not anticipate the Long Island Railroad, and eventually Metro North as well, having to put on additional trains to serve these additional city riders. If you had it at the same price as a MetroCard, hypothetically, that would no longer be the case for sure, because an awful lot of people would switch from the subway bus to the railroad.
And again, until
Would
we
that
start
be
access
so
opens up.
bad? Wouldn't we want people to get out of their cars and use
Long
public
Island Railroad
transit?
doesn't have the capacity to
But-
add trains
but
until
they're-
we
If you have the
start.
capacity,
What-
it's
what-
fine.
What number are we talking about? Until you have some analysis.
Right, yes.
If you say, this is, I'm sorry, I really am arguing for a rational analysis of the issue, not a political analysis.
Yes.
And I really think also nickeling and diming the riders it makes it very much more confusing. You have to then decide 3 different fares, which one do I use? How many trips am I gonna make this week? How many will I make next week? Let's have one city, one fare. It's not a big deal. In fact, MTA was stuck doing that when Pataki made the bus subway transfer free. Nobody in MTA wanted to do that. When he made the unlimited ride, that was just outrageous for having unlimited ride monthly, and we even had 1-day unlimited ride fares. Those have been removed, even though other cities around the world have them. I think it's the Transit Riders Council ought to be thinking about its constituency, which is the transit riders. And let's get the best deal we can, and let the others figure out how to make a compromise this way or that. If we're expecting motorists to pay East River tolls, some crumbs have to fall off the table for transit riders. It can't just be all and nothing.
The Move
You've
New
got
York
to have
plan
a
is not
combination.
crumbs. It's a lot of money, the Move New York plan, which would tax
Yeah, but
motorists.
the riders
It's not crumbs.
themselves aren't getting it. That's the engineers that are going to build big projects in
George,
the future.
what if,
I'm an engineer.
we
I
have
don't
the
know.
technology now, of course. What if you entered a station, and pick a station, a suburban train station in the boroughs, and it said, where do you want to go? And then the next question on this computer-generated thing was, how often do you make this trip? And it gave you the option of fares. Would you like to take, this? Would you like to have transferability? Would you like to have unlimited for a month or a week? What if the machine gave you those options? What if the rider had all those options?
He'd go mad.
Yeah.
You actually drive
But-
people insane.
But,
Basically, you
I don't
want to go to
trust
your
machines.
employer and buy a monthly pass and put it onto your wage package. You don't want to have the employer sitting there negotiating each trip and each
see,
ride and how
the
he's going
problem
to do
is
it.
you've taken the title of your organization too much to heart. Everything has to be rational to you. That's the problem.
But that's what we tried to do
It should,
in
some of it should
in
be
having a
flexible.
premium service and a regular service. That's understandable by most people.
Sure.
Having a much more complex one, which could be done because of an economic model that showed, the Atlantic branch you could charge, at a much lower rate, and on another branch at a much higher, gets complicated. But I think that NYCTRC has a model, the economic model. The MTA seems like it's been more reliable in some ways, their economic model, but it could be that our next step could be to talk to them
That's, of course,
and
exactly right.
see can we get something on it?
Well, you're talking about a city that operates on a one fare, no matter how long or how often you take it. I mean, we got the most backward type fares that you could have.
Right.
Actually, when East Side Access opens,
You-
and Brooklyn